Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to talk about the Visual Studio Code installation and as well as download. We need to know how to download the Visual Studio Code in our machine. We need to know how to put Visual Studio Code in our machine, specifically on Windows computers. So if you are a Windows user, please this video is for you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we need to know and understand how to install or rather download any software, not only Visual Studio Code, but any software. We need to know how to do it to install that software or to install any software, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now we are going to visit the download Visual Studio Code page to grab the latest installer. Okay, we are going to visit the download Visual Studio Code page to grab the latest installer. Okay, so I'm going to type code .visual studio code visual studio code .com and hit enter. Okay, so now it is going to land me to this page. Okay, I'm on this page right now. Okay, this is the official site for Visual Studio Code, ladies and gentlemen, or Visual Studio, just like that. Okay, so now here it says the open source AI code editor, your home for multi-agent development. Okay, you are in the right place, you are in the right page here, just like that. Okay, so we have to make sure that we first download the installer. Now this is the installer, the one that we are going to download, which is telling us to download for Windows. If we click this button, the installer will start or the computer will download this installer at what or rather it's going to appear at the corner there, showing that this installer is being downloaded by what, by the the operating system that you're using or any computer that you're using there. Okay, just like that, ladies and gentlemen. So now if I click download for Windows right now, you will see what is going to happen. So this is the one, it is being downloaded by the computer right now. So now I'm going to cancel this one because I already have this Visual Studio Code downloaded in my machine. Now after downloading this Visual Studio Code, where are we going to find the setup now after downloading this? If you want, you can just follow it direct from there, or if you don't want it, you can just open this Windows Explorer. Okay, Explorer here, then you will find Visual Studio Code on today downloads. You'll find it there, and of course that is the setup that we have, that we've just downloaded, just like that, ladies and gentlemen. Then after that, what do we need to do? We need to launch the installer. So let's say launch this installer here. Okay, we're launching this installer. Okay, that is good. Now on the installer here, or rather on the pop-up after launching the installer, we have with this license agreement pop-up here. Of course you need to agree to this before you proceed with your installation. I'm sure they said some registrations right now. If you don't click or check this circle box here, if you don't check this circle, it is not going to allow you to proceed with your installation. So now you have to make sure that you check this. I accept the agreement, but before that you need to read. Yes, don't just accept it now. No, you just have to do it to read here. Okay, so now I accept the agreement. Then after that, you do what? You click next. Then on the next part, you will find the select additional tasks, where you need to select something that has to be added to the Visual Studio Code, something that has to be added for you. What else do you want from Visual Studio Code? Okay, we want the icon on the what, on the screen. Okay, we need icon on the screen, and we must do what, we must check that, and it is going to be placed on the desktop screen there, allowing you to do what, to access Visual Studio Code easily, just like that, ladies and gentlemen. And then after that, you have got this one, add open with code action to Windows Explorer file context. Now here, now you see this is the file that I have here. This is the file. I'm just going to pick a file here. So now if I click on this file, then I left click or right click like that, it is going to give me this option, open with code, which means I'm able to open with Visual Studio Code here. Why is it that this option is being displayed there? It's because of what? It is because of this add open with code action to Windows Explorer file context. Same applies to this. This one applies to the folder here. This one applies to the what? To the folder here. Okay, to the folder So now you need to do what? You need to do this. Okay, this one will allow you to do this. Okay, this one will allow you to do this like this support folder. If we right click on support folder, it is going to do what? To allow you to open with this code. So you're opening this support folder with the Visual Studio Code. Why is it that it is bringing that option? It is because of this selection here. Register code as an editor for supported files. Of course, files that are supported by the Visual Studio Code must be opened by Visual Studio Code there. So you need to register this code editor as the editor in your in your computer there. You do what? You check it there just like that. So that immediately you select the file, the computer must allow you to open that file with code or with the Visual Studio Code just like that. Ladies and gentlemen, then add path. This path, it's very, very much important. This Windows must recognize this Visual Studio Code, and that's the reason why we're adding it to what? To path here, just like that. So you have to simply check all these boxes, okay? But if you don't want this, there's no problem. You can go ahead, but it will be very much difficult for you to use Visual Studio Code. But if you want Visual Studio Code to be very much friendly to you, just check these these boxes, and believe me, you will understand this, and you will celebrate. Okay, good. Then you go to next. Next here, of course, you have got this part here. I'm not going to install this Visual Studio Code because I already have it here. This is the one which is here, and I cannot install it again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end here. So you have to make sure that you do what? You install Visual Studio Code using these a few steps, ladies and gentlemen. Now if you don't believe right now, let me just try to open this file using Visual Studio Code here. We're going to open this file using Visual Studio Code here. Okay, this is the file. Okay, it's loading. Okay, good. So this is the file. Okay, the file or the folder that I've opened with Visual Studio Code, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of my projects. Okay, good. Okay, this is one of my project, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so now you don't have to mind about this. This is just the example on how Visual Studio Code works after checking those boxes, just like that. So ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very much simple. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via WhatsApp. Just send a message to my WhatsApp, number 0976 1149 96. If you have any question, please, if you have got any project idea, we will do that together. Ladies and gentlemen, this video is specifically for the students of Rockview University, main campus, Ndola campus, Chipata campus, and as well as the Livingstone campus, including the online campus, ladies and gentlemen. So please comment. If you have any question, please comment just like that. Okay, if you want us to do something to make or rather to develop a certain project that you think we can do or we can build, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Then we can make that arrangement. Thank you very much. May God bless us all. Thank you so much. Thank you.